Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar featuring European resources. Stock code is ERE. And thanks again for your time today. On the line today, we have Managing Director of European Resources, Mr. Jason Beckton. Morning, Jason.
Good morning, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
Just some housekeeping first up. This will run for an hour or less, depending on how we go. Please feel free to submit any questions you may have to Jason during the event. We'll have the presentation first, about half an hour or so, after which we'll have the Q&A session. Very welcome to enter your questions, to which we'll address in the Q&A. And again, there'll be recordings being made, so if you want to watch this later on, you're very welcome to do so at your leisure. So just to kick off, Jason, I'd like to now hand over control to yourself, and if you'd like to start the presentation. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Anthony, and I'll just let you know the next slide, etc. So the first slide is obviously, like most companies this size, value is driven by drill results, as we saw in February. I'll talk about the current resource and future work, so hence the disclaimer. Next slide. So look, I think it's a very topical space to be in right now, and has been for a few years now. Most recently, we'll just talk about the macro for a little bit. We saw almost a identical deal last week between Linus and Sojitz, so between a supplier and a consumer, just like we saw months earlier between the Department of War and MP Materials in the United States. So there's the growing realization that it's very important that customers receive their product, and it's very important that the supply end, which we are just becoming part of in the future, hopefully, we also need price assurance and things like that, and not to be insulated, I guess, for want of a better word, going forward. And the sort of prices that are surging beyond these base prices of 123 kilo for NdPr is an excellent sign. Without boring you with mathematics, it's basically the recognition of the previous spot prices are a confection of one jurisdiction that has a monopoly in the space and is losing that monopoly, I guess. So back to the company, ERE had a significant change or step change in results in February, hence the share price reaction at the time of hole 316, totally opening up in thickness and grade to the south. As per the 23rd of February announcement, significant thicknesses of over 1%, total rare earth oxide, including, importantly, enrichments of well over 25%, which is what you like to see. 8.5 metres at over 1%, another 4.5 metres at nearly 1.5%. So we think that these sort of numbers underwrite what is a simplistic geological model, and we'll talk about the metallurgy in a minute as well. We go to the next slide, Anthony. So we are a small but promising company. There's a slightly dated share price information, but effectively the market cap has hovered around the 10 million mark for a year or two now, as the market patiently waited for news on both growth of the resource and the ever-growing or ever-compensating exploration target, but also the metallurgy process. Because of a project like this, astute investors like to see a flow sheet and no processing red flags because of the relative paucity of vertically integrated rare earth operations. We recognise both growth and quality, i.e. metallurgy, are important. And the cash balance, you see, later on we're working on alleviating that, which is because the company's currently issued an entitlement offer. We go to the next slide, please, Anthony. Oh, and I omitted to mention this previous slide, but importantly, this slide as well shows interaction with our host community in Western Finland, where the primary project Korsnäs is. We'll also talk about central Finland and Ottonmaki, as well as our Slovakian gold, silver assets, which remain competitive targets for the company. We have a good mix of corporate and technical. I've been working with the Miscorp shop in Sydney since 2004, so 22 years now, with people like Peter Nightingale, Thomas Mann, and others. Richard Edwards, who ably assists us, given that he works for much larger entities such as Nickel Mines and Alpha HPA. And then, well, I should say Nickel Industries. Then we have a Slovak Finn management team who the Slovaks, for example, can work in Finland because of Schengen. It's just like being interstate in Australia. So we've kept the things fairly lean. Most of these people are effectively non-execs or casual, but we're still able to oversee drill and sampling programs. We go to the next slide, please, Anthony. For example, here's Jacob Bukovina, senior geologist from Slovakia, sampling core in Korsnäs a few weeks ago, or months ago now. And one of the advantages, of course, of Europe is it's not a fly-in, fly-out job. Everyone drives to site, given they're in that part of Europe. Infrastructure I'll take as red for Finland, but the key thing that you don't get to opine on or have a view on is electricity price. And Finland is, no doubt about it, with the exception of Wyoming and the United States, the cheapest electricity source in the first world, due to a hybrid mix of nuclear, some hydro, but also even burning waste forestry products. So a decentralized grid, far less, by an order of 6 or 7 with our competitors in Australia, California, and Brazil. So we're very happy to be involved in a development in a part of the world where it's first world. And this is a key for any economy, particularly in the current environment. You must have cheap power or don't build the factory. And so our shareholders are exposed to significant technical and mathematical advantage and permitting advantage in this part of the world. We can go to the next slide. So we are in a, if you like, a federation in some ways in the EU. Finland, up in the central northern sector, is long been known to be pro-mining. That's fine. You have a large established industrial mining complex in the south, and to a larger extent a gold complex in the north that we'll refer to. You have not a federal government, but you have an EU consortia who are, apart from recently completing the free trade agreement with Australia, which may be helpful for us, actively supporting, in the past, sadly, only processing facilities, but not supply. And as we've seen in the past in northern Sweden with Northvolt, you don't build a processing facility without supply. And so we're at the supply end. We don't pretend with our market cap to be building large chemistry sets which are dilutionary to shareholders. We want to produce a basic flotation concentrate and separate it somewhat for end users. So that's the current business model. And there's some comments there I'll take as read that the EU commissioners are in fact aware of the fact they're 100% independent currently on Chinese imports. So we think that there's a yawning gap that we can be part of filling. Go to the next slide. Pricing topical. I won't run through these one by one, but one feature is the top of the slide, and that's why we have to talk about enrichment factors. Some rare earths are relatively worthless, such as lanthanum and cerium. In most processing circuits, they go to tails. I know for a fact the cerium market is saturated, for example, hence it's relatively low price. Praseodymium, neodymium, that would be the bread, if you like, the main product that we come up with. And then there's the butter, which is a high value rare earth, such as dysprosium, terbium, and importantly, yttrium, which we also have in significant numbers. But when we do the revised estimate, we'll also highlight samarium, which looks like a low price there, but that's artificially low given that it's a Chinese price, and the US government recently has decried it as an ultra critical element. Linus made the news recently of broadcast the news they're the first non-Chinese entity to produce a small amount of samarium. So given that you don't want too many people producing it for pricing reasons, but we think that the samarium numbers are on the upside and people should look at the revised source estimate when it comes out. Nominally, the pricing at the moment, contract pricing in the US is about 6 times the Chinese number. So again, a disconnect from what you see in the mainstream press and what it's actually being bought and sold for. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, so the other thing we do, this slide, the main thing to take away from it is, in the case of Corsness, is that it's a brownfields asset. We don't expose shareholders to greenfields exploration assets. Given our size, we look to take advantage of work that's been done before. We'll talk about some of the geological work and metallurgy work. We can't really refer to what the vast body of work that was done before because it wasn't done by a modern Australian chemist. It's one of the JORC rules these days. But what we do know is that we have a vast body of work and we're just improving on it, really. In the past, it was a lead mine with known rare earth mineralisation, which in fact was most of the mineralisation. It's really what Corsness is a rare earth project with lead accessory levels in one plumb where they set up the mine. Jokikangas in central Finland, as I referred to, near the city of Oulu, where our headquarters are or our accountants is. We'll talk about that because we're going to repeat the dose that we did with Corsness of sampling drilling that someone else drilled. And we'll talk about possible end user. So there's a business here, and that there are people who actually make magnets out of rare earths in Europe, including Neo Materials in Estonia, Vacuum Smelts in Germany, and now Solvay in France. So there's a few options in the future for shareholders in terms of capitalising on near-term production. Next slide, please, Anthony. I keep clicking on as if I'm doing it. So again, brownfields asset like I've worked on for 30 years. Corsness in this case was basically a municipal museum, open ground, and we pegged this for shareholders 100% back in 2022 and completed the deal with Prospect from Bambara OY, which is a small Finnish company. And we have, importantly, and this is a key piece, we went from 0 to now 13.5 million tonnes of over 1% total rare earth oxide inferred resource, and a exploration target which replaced itself, if you like, in the revision, because our first estimate was 7 million tonnes. We nearly doubled that, 90% up to 13.5, and you normally expect the exploration target to be consumed by an increase in the inferred resource, but it advanced in front of it, and hopefully you'll see more of the same in the near term now that we've published our results and we're working on it. Metallurgical test work, we'll refer to that in the following slide, underway with Australian, Indonesian and Finnish partners. And this is the key thing to take away from this slide, is approximately $16 million worth of drilling was already completed on the project, most of it unsampled. I would say 95% of the intervals that we report, of course, all modern assays. We don't report any historic assays. All of that was unsampled because it's a base metal mine. They were exploring for lead, but sadly they kept finding zone after zone of rare earths. And like myself, when I was a young geologist 30 years ago in Broken Hill, you don't sample core if you can't see the base metals. The tailings storage facility, which is a separate project, in fact has total rare earth oxides in it in an previously announced exploration target of well over 0.5%, or over 6,200 ppm, which is relatively high grade compared to some of our competitors, for example, in Brazil, but obviously small tonnage. So you're moving less of Finland for good tons of rare earth, good concentrates of rare earths. And we're working on metallurgical test work, not really geological work because it's a free dig pile, but we're working on metallurgical test work. And this is a near-term, potentially a near-term cash flow opportunity for the company. There's a very small lanthanide concentrate stockpile as well, about 2.5%. Higher ratio of NdPr enrichment, and that's being evaluated as well currently in Sydney with ANSTO in terms of techniques on separation, which will be useful, and some of that chemistry will be relevant to the hard rock program which is underway in Finland and soon elsewhere shortly. We go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, previous slide, Anthony. Previous slide, please. Again, yep, thank you. One point I forgot, I overstepped there, was the underground production for the lead mine was only a bit under 1 million tonnes. So we're already about 13 and a half times in terms of resources the historic production, given that they focused on one zone where a late pulse of lead had run up the side of one of these rare earth zones. So even the old mine itself has remnant rare earth zones, but well under 10% now of the current resource. And of course, we've done a void model and subtracted those voids. We go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So some science recently initiated by our technical director in John Levings has proven a bit of a breakthrough, given that we had a lead on the 7 parallel zones, and I hasten to add they mined one of those zones over about 10% of its strike. Those 7 zones, they don't manifest to the surface because there's been a glacial till erosion and deposition. Usually the cover's between 5 and 7 meters, but in this case, there's a deeper cover where the rare earth zones come to the subsurface because they're a calcite or carbonatite, and hence subject to erosion and softer than the surrounding host rock, which is a very hard schist. So that's good for us because when you're doing geophysics for the layman, what you want is contrast, whether it's electrical or physical, you're looking for contrasts. And what we can see here, or gravity-wise, which is physical, what you can see here is passive seismic, which is an innovative technique out of Italy that measures from passing vehicles or other seismic events in the Earth's crust. Gives you a reading of the various layers, and what we're seeing is every time these high-grade zones, which are blind, are being given away, if you like, by a deeper channel of till, which is far lighter than the underlying eroded hard schist. And that deeper zone is, again, not to be repetitive, but formed by those soft, rare earth-rich calcite zones intersecting the surface. So, it's basically geometry work. We're going to do more of it. We're going to get more hits like 316, particularly to the north and south along these 7 zones. At least 7 zones. There's probably some more to the east that we can't speculate on for lack of data, but there seems to be a repetition at a certain frequency, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So apart from the mineral, if you like, composition, we'll talk about the fact that these are relatively predictable zones. The characterization work, which is the first step before you do detailed metallurgy work, which helps the metallurgists or the geometallurgists decide on a processing route, has been well behaved and complied with what the work was done before. But for JORC reasons, we had to repeat it. We're seeing a lot of apatite, which is a phosphate, relatively straightforward to process, and some allanite, which is slightly tougher to process in the silicates as well. So there's a blend, but importantly, that blend is not mixed. There's one layer, generally there's a layer of apatite above the layer of allanite, so it's sort of quite interesting. And we've got some academics from KU Leuven in Belgium as well as Finland looking at that at the moment. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, so I mean, as an investor on my personal account, I look for simplicity, and what we have here is a processed tailings. The part that's not simple, not to be flippant about it, is the grain size. So the grain size is what the challenge for the test work that's going on at Mining School Oulu in northern Finland, the land of Nokia. And also in Indonesia, where we've got some excellent results, which we published recently with PT Geoservices on the chemistry. Importantly, we have a great metallurgical consultant in Mark Stemson overseeing this work. This is also what catalysed, if you like, an EU grant, the REM Hub grant, where the company received approximately 700,000 Australian year before last to work on the drilling and processing of the tailings dam area, because they want to, as the EU talk about a lot, they want to see some innovation and processing on how we liberate these oxides, and then within that, the elements within the oxides to make the end game, which is your rare earth powder, prior to being a magnet. So far so good. As you can see, excellent sort of zonation within the tailings dam. So it does suggest that with more work, we could have some kind of scoping study down the track soon for the tailings dam in particular, which is potentially a shortcut to cash flow, as I mentioned earlier, and we've mentioned in the last quarterly. Begin next slide. Yeah, so not to make this death by PowerPoint on the metallurgical work, but it is important that shareholders are aware it's not just about size and scale of the resources, but also can you go all the way and make a product that's commercial. And there's definitely a no red flag so far. There's more work due, which we'll be reporting in the future without giving exact timelines, from GTK Mintech in Finland, Mining School Oulu in Finland, in respectively hard rock work on the core we've generated and the tailings, as I just mentioned, and also PTGS Services on the concentrate and tails, and then Ansto, who are working on the concentrate pile, as well as in the future the phase 2 drilling hard rock work. So there's a thick wave, if you like, of news flow coming forward on that front, to, as most investors want to see, a flow sheet at the back end that works. And so far, no red flags. So that's good progress from zero, where we were in 2023. We go to the next slide. Every project should have a supporting competitor. In this case, we have Joki Kangas in central Finland. Importantly, we're going to repeat what we've just done with Korsnäs. We've only sampled a small fraction of these holes. It was topical in April 2023 because we spoke about previous hafnium numbers. Hafnium is a reasonably rare high field strength element that's associated with zirconium production. But importantly, a lot of these holes were drilled in the past for zirconium and rare iron ore. And in fact, there's an entity that we surround that is looking to produce zirconium and iron ore from tails, given that there was a historic old iron ore underground mine at around that Ontanmaki railhead, which you can see on the right of the image. Plenty of drill holes to look at, as it's 81. I doubt we'll sample all of them this campaign, but I'll be there in May as well, where we quickly cut and dispatch those intervals from those holes. And importantly, we're not doing a PhD on the geology. It's already been well logged, as it was for Korsnäs. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just want to get modern rare earth assays into the system. And there was a few lessons learned where we did so many samples of Korsnäs, well over 200, that we actually choked the system. So we know different contractors that can help us get everything out in a timely manner. So that'll be separate news flow again to drilling and metallurgy at Korsnäs. Will be old drilling sampling at Joki Kangas. If we go to the next slide, Anthony. And there's a peripheral project, Slovakia. We know exactly where to drill there. There's 10,000 meters planned. It's a few different projects. The main project, Hadrusha Humre, is subject to application. It's just basically the shape of it gives away that it's a volcanic caldera, one of the main epithermal gold-silver calderas in the Western Tethyan, which is very famous right now in Serbia, with other companies doing well. We kind of have a dominant hold there adjacent to a third party who are actually in production, underground production, producing about 0.5 ounce gold per tonne. We do have a porphyry project we like as well called Slatno, which we've spoken about in the past, and we would like to replicate some of those very long mineralized holes that were drilled in Soviet era times, and that's also attracting interest, as it should, of third-party larger groups. You can see there's some images of some of the other foreigners in Slovakia. It's definitely a positive foreign direct investment country within the EU and the EEC. Can we go to the next slide? So news flow, very, if you like, straightforward in a way. Coarseness, we kept stepping out and finding more. That's the drilling side of it. Metallurgy, we importantly, early stage, you could argue, but the metallurgy work is ongoing with a project like this. Like there's even producing mines such as Mount Weld and Mountain Pass where they still do metallurgical test work. So it's not like you just get it done, but you get it done to a point where you can make investment decisions. And it's so far so good on both the hard rock and the tailings. And we're working on market updates in that regard in the future, obviously. We do see with the recent drilling probable increase in the JORC resource, and I would say the exploration target as well, but we can't speculate on that till it's done. And that's underway right now. The technical team led by John Levings. As I said, it won't be too repetitive. Ottenmaki, Yoki, Kangas is being sampled shortly. We're already booked into the core library in Lopi. And Slovakia, we want to see some granting of some tenure first before we invest some more shareholders' time and money into what is a sitting duck target at Zlatno for gold, silver, porphyry, copper, porphyry. And third parties are talking to us, given that they view that this asset as peripheral, but we think it's a good blend of risk and reward for shareholders, having some gold, silver in there as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So yeah, look, the key thing is news. We don't make rare earths or gold yet. We make news, and there's a lot to come out of coarseness with metallurgy and drilling. In the near term, as I said, resource estimate review or revision, and then sampling more rare earth material, both at coarseness but also Jockey Kangas in early May. And then Slovakia will update the market when we're happy that we're ready to invest there again once we get 3 tenements renewed. And I think that what shareholders should be aware of, we're an old-fashioned style of outfit that generates results that are positive. If they're negative, we stop, and we're good at kill decisions. But so far, this project, and sometimes geos can fall in love with projects. It's not the case. This project just keeps delivering and is a strong competitor for future attention. So watch this space. Go to the next slide. To that end, we are a cash negative entity, so we have to issue shares to keep the work going. This is a well-priced, or as it was a few weeks ago, well-priced rights issue. There's no need to go through this in detail other than to say I'll be contributing, as will all the other directors, as we can see a de-risking, if you like, in the growth and the quality of the asset. In what I hasten to add is mainland Europe. So you're not shipping rare earths across the North Atlantic from Greenland or from Brazil. You're right near where the factories are, and it's a geometrically simple resource. You can keep going. Another slide. That's the thank you slide. We have some appendices, but I might wait for questions, Anthony.
Yep. Thanks again. Thanks, Jason. That was awesome. Thank you again for your time. Everyone, if you'd like to, please feel free to submit questions. If you have any questions for Jason, I'll just check our questions list. And first up, we have, so on the Q&A, we have a question here about milestones for 2026. Jason, what are the key milestones this year for ERE for investors?
Well, I'm a big believer in you do a drill program, then if it's applicable, you do a resource estimate. Some people have a different view that you just keep drilling and drilling and you don't do resource estimates. But of course, every company that keeps drilling and drilling does resource estimates internally. So we just like, apart from the criticism you can get of that you're doing it too early, we want everyone to be across of the fact that it is straightforward and will keep growing as we drill more. So anyway, without rambling on, it's a resource upgrade. There'll be more flow sheet de-risking events from the Australian labs and Finnish labs, barring any difficulties. And we appreciate shareholders' patience, because the Finnish labs have taken about a year to get to where we are now. They've we're part of a consortia there with the EU grants, so we're pushing to get those numbers out. And the other milestone, of course, is preparing to drill in Slovakia, where we do have well-crafted programs of 10,000 meters ready to go in what is a multi-million ounce producer in the past, and a dominant land position where most other companies are holding peripheral positions around the caldera. The model there is like an Emperor Fiji gold system, basically. So it's not just something that's interesting and altered. This is a caldera that's in production. Back to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, everyone, please feel free to submit questions if you have any questions while we've got Jason now on the line. Now's your chance to fire away. So more questions coming in. One here about the cap raise. So Jason, obviously ERE currently has an offer underway to shareholders. What's the purpose of the cap raise and how the funds are going to be allocated?
So importantly, we're not looking at a significantly dilutionary raise. We're looking at the purpose is the majority of funds, approximately 80%, go to Finland. Yes, for metallurgy, but also for the sexy drill out or growth drilling. Importantly, we're not doing any infill drilling because we haven't found the limits of it. I've been a resource geologist since 1998, and you don't infill until you found the end of it. You certainly don't infill before you do a resource estimate. So what we're doing is extending it to the known limits of tenure, as people would see on some of our exploration target releases in the past, and that is a basic step out because these are linear repeated zones the thickness averages about 20 meters horizontal thickness is what engineer talk, and these are just straightforward drill outs of ramps, if you like, 7 different ramps. Anyway, back to you. Otherwise, I'll keep talking all day.
Thanks, Jason. We've seen another question here. We've seen recently US government giving funding, doing deals, Australian government announcing loan deals, etc. EU, I know you've had EU funding in the past. What's the prospect for more EU funding going forward for ERE?
Well, I was just in a meeting when I spoke about grant bait, and really what you want for grants is to innovate, but shareholders don't pay us to innovate. They pay us to prove up size and to reduce flow sheets. So things like, for us, it's the tailings dam that is attractive to the EU government because they'd like to see a lot of different tailings dams worked on and removed and reprocessed and beautified. So that's fine. But when it comes to us, we're not looking at building a large processing plant or anything like that. That's a traditional source for most government grants when you pass PFS stage. So we don't waste shareholders' time on applying for every grant because some of them you find out at the very end, oh, you're not a PFS yet. So the risky stage that we're at, the governments anyway deem that we're at, means that most grants we don't bother with, particularly in the EU. We're welcome. All investors are welcome from the EU, of course. We have a Frankfurt listing, which facilitates that. However, we are focused on the innovative side of things, which are currently the tailings dam and potentially some heavy rare earth separation initiatives, which are obviously super critical. Germany just officially ran out the other day, so we're going to be involved with those efforts. But without too much detail, we definitely know how to apply for the grants, but also which ones not to bother with.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Question here about the rare earths market. Obviously, we've seen an uptick in pricing you mentioned earlier. How are you seeing the outlook for the rare earths market for 2026 and 27 going forward?
Yeah, well, you always hesitate to predict the future, but the past is an important tool. For example, when I first was involved in rare earths in 2011, 12 at Mount Dorothy, we had a heavy rare earth prospect there near Mount Isa, and the prices surged because of a Chinese restriction at that time of export to Japan. We've just seen them do that again recently. And so the natural reaction for the consumers of these non-existent rare earths, ex-China, is to be in partnership or coordinate with the supply side, which is what we represent, potentially, given that we're at inferred stage. So we're in the box seat, really. Shareholders are in the box seat to be part of those deals. Mind you, what we won't do is sell all the upside in the company to a third party while they sit back and wait for their product. So your standard offtake agreements can be, I think, non-commercial. We would look for something that directly benefits shareholders in the short term.
Great, thanks, Jason. And just looking, another question here about the short-term recourseness. What's in the pipeline right the next few months for courseness going forward?
So we have an internal healthy debate. We'll probably get straight into more of the passive seismic, which will illuminate the zones to the north and south. We sort of already know roughly where they are because we just step out in a linear fashion, but it is good to get that extra level of confidence, and now's the time to do it with the snows just disappearing and no vegetation. So that'll probably start in the next few weeks. We'll seek tenders for a third modern drilling campaign that we just finished our second one, as people saw with the February releases, which changed the company's value. So yeah, short term, more geophysics, more basic drilling, step out work. I think we've done enough metallurgical drilling for now and enough products, so we need to advance a contract with a third party lab prior to the stage of ANSTO who do the separation. You've got to make a concentrate before the separation, and that works subject to tender as we speak. So we're predicting sealing that off or closing that tender, and then sending out the hard rock stage 2 hard rock job, not to GTK Mintech because they've got their hands full with the stage 1 material. So overall, we see a continued metallurgy / drill extension news flow for Corsness itself.
Excellent. And the question about Yoki Kangas, what's in the pipeline for Yoki Kangas?
Well, Yoki Kangas, it's different geology. It's more of a magmatic related. Basically, it's an iron ore deposit with zircon and rare earths and hafnium. And so it's a linear thing as well, but we want to continue discussions with the third-party company that we surround. Apart from that, though, there's 81 holes on our ground, so we'll sample those as well. So I would say the pipeline there, which would potentially affect share price, is actual drill results when someone else drilled it for us. Because I hasten to add, most of these holes are never assayed for rare earths because they're in the lead at Corsness, and I don't judge this because the work was done in the 60s and 70s. The core is largely unsampled.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of upside. And then you've got silver and gold, obviously been pretty strong the last year or so. And obviously ERE has those projects in Slovakia. How's that looking, Jason, for Slovakia over the next year or so?
Well, I mean, we seek to emulate the success some of our competitors have had in Serbia. Slovakia is EU, EEC, so you're in an open democracy there in terms of market. The excitement there has always been the gold-silver epithermal style, which basically built Vienna by the old Habsburg Empire. These are, and what we see with our neighbour, which is a producing mine, Rosalia, is a head grade of between 10 and 15 grams per tonne. So you're at the small tonnage, high grade part of the grade tonnage curve there, but unusually you've also got gold and copper gold porphyries that could be potentially block caved underground as well. So we really like that style of deposit, like Waihi, New Zealand, Newcrest, Gossawong in the past. There's a misnomer out there that these are smaller systems that majors don't control, whereas it's certainly not the case. Emperor in Fiji, I mentioned earlier, that's the analogy for the caldera that we may largely control. So we know the structural settings that we want to hit in 3D. Those targets are prepared. So I don't want people to think we're over there and it's geotourism. We know where we want to drill. It's just a matter of budget and also the healthy internal competition from Corsness.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So everyone, there's still a chance to submit more questions if you have any more questions for Jason while he's on the line. Otherwise, Jason, I believe you're off to Europe again soon for a presentation, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. And I would hasten to add my phone number and email addresses on every press release, so people can always ask questions at their leisure as well, invest or no. We treat investors as owners of the business, which they are. But yeah, we're due to speak at Invest Europe at Stuttgart on the 17th of April. Then we'll have more investor meetings after that in Europe and in Finland, and then sampling core in early May, basically. That's the current program. Potentially attend an EU Gab Fest in mid-May, but we're just still verifying the utility of that.
Excellent. So chance to see Jason again pretty soon in Europe, and hopefully in Australia also, various events around town. So thank you again, Jason, for your time this morning. Please follow us on LinkedIn as well if you're on LinkedIn. Jason, thank you again for your time this morning. Details are on the screen, and everyone have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Anthony, and thanks to the Fensom Advisory team.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.